My mother emptied my $82,600 college fund 3 weeks before I started school, forged my signature, and used the money to pay for my brother's dream wedding. So I took her to court and uncovered the betrayal my entire family was trying to hide. 3 weeks before I was supposed to begin college, my tuition payment failed. I called the bank expecting a technical problem and learned that the account my grandfather had built for me since birth contained $417. The month before, it had held $82,600. That same afternoon, my mother sent me a photo from my brother's wedding tasting. She was standing beneath a wall of white roses that cost more than my first semester, smiling beside a sign that said, "Family makes dreams possible." She had no idea I had already spoken to the bank. She also did not know my grandfather had left a second copy of the account agreement with his attorney. Why had my mother emptied an account bearing my name to fund a one-day celebration? And why did my brother's wedding planner have a withdrawal form containing a signature that looked like mine but was not? I am Natalie, and I was 18 when this happened. My brother Brandon was 27. Until that summer, I believed the money was a normal college fund controlled by my mother. I did not understand that it was an UTMA custodial account, meaning the assets legally belonged to me even while she managed them. My grandfather, Arthur, opened it when I was a baby. He was a high school chemistry teacher who never earned much, but he invested consistently. Every birthday, he put money into the account instead of buying large gifts. When he died during my sophomore year, the balance was a little over $61,000. Life insurance proceeds and investment growth later brought it above $80,000. Grandpa Arthur used to say, "Natalie, this money is not a prize, it is a bridge. Cross it carefully, then help somebody else cross." My mother, Linda, became custodian after my father died when I was 11. She showed me quarterly statements until I was 16. Then she switched to electronic delivery and said paper was wasteful. I had no reason to distrust her. Brandon was the center of our family in a softer, more expensive way. He played baseball, changed majors 3 times, and spent 6 years earning a communications degree. My mother paid his rent whenever he was between jobs. She described him as ambitious, even when his ambitions changed monthly. I was the scholarship child. I took advanced classes, worked at a library, and applied to 12 colleges. My mother told everyone I had inherited Grandpa Arthur's discipline. I now understand that praising my independence made it easier for her to reserve help for Brandon. The difference appeared long before the wedding. When Brandon turned 16, my mother helped him buy a used Mustang and covered the insurance after he received 2 speeding tickets. When I turned 16, she gave me Grandpa's bus pass holder and told me reliable transportation did not need 4 wheels. I took the city bus to the library for almost a year before saving $3,200 for a 12-year-old Honda. Brandon once dropped a community college class after the refund deadline because he disliked the instructor. My mother called the lost $1,100 an honest mistake. When I paid a $35 late fee for a standardized test, she made me reimburse her and write the due date on the refrigerator so I would learn accountability. Grandpa noticed. He never criticized my mother directly, but he taught me to keep documents. When I was 14, he gave me a portable file box and labeled folders for school, work, taxes, and banking. He said, "People remember intentions, paper remembers decisions." After his death, my mother tried to throw the box away because it was scratched and smelled faintly of his pipe tobacco. I kept it under my bed. The old bank statement I later used to find the account number survived only because of that box. There was another warning I ignored. During my senior year, my mother asked me to sign 3 blank sheets beneath a cover page for college financial aid. I refused because my counselor had told us never to sign incomplete forms. My mother became offended and said she was not a stranger trying to steal my identity. She eventually brought back completed pages, and I signed only the designated lines. At the time, I thought her reaction was about trust. After seeing the copied signature, I wondered whether she had been testing how easily she could obtain one. Brandon proposed to his girlfriend, Sierra, 18 months before my graduation. Sierra came from a family that treated weddings like corporate launches. Her sister's wedding had been featured in a regional magazine, and Sierra wanted something equally impressive. The original budget was $35,000. Within 6 months, it became $70,000. The final event included a vineyard venue, a string quartet, a champagne wall, imported flowers, 2 photographers, a drone team, custom suits, and a live painter. My mother talked about the wedding constantly, but insisted Sierra's parents were covering most of it. Whenever I expressed concern, my mother said, "Brandon only gets married once. We will make it special without touching your future." That last phrase now feels almost rehearsed. I was accepted to Northlake University with a scholarship covering tuition above $19,000 per year. I still needed to pay $12,400 for tuition and fees each year, plus housing. I chose Northlake because the custodial account could cover most of the gap without leaving me buried in loans. In May, my mother and I sat at the kitchen table to complete the enrollment deposit. She told me she would arrange a direct payment from the fund when the fall invoice arrived. I asked to see the current balance. She said the website was under maintenance. In June, I asked again. She said our financial advisor was rebalancing the investments. In July, she claimed the bank needed my original birth certificate before releasing tuition. Each excuse was plausible enough to delay me for another week. On August 6th, Northlake emailed that my payment plan had been rejected because the first transfer was returned. I called the number on an old statement I found in Grandpa's file box. The bank representative verified my identity and then said, "The available balance is $417.12. I thought she meant the checking portion. I asked about the investments. The representative explained that the holdings had been liquidated and almost all funds withdrawn through a cashier's check 5 weeks earlier. I asked who authorized it. She said the custodian had submitted a distribution request, but because I was already 18, the request also included an acknowledgement bearing my signature. I had signed nothing. The representative froze the remaining account and opened a fraud review. She could not send the disputed form immediately, but she confirmed the cashier's check had been payable to Ever After Events, the company planning Brandon's wedding. 10 minutes later, my mother sent the tasting photo. I stared at the flower wall, then searched Ever After Events online. The company's public portfolio showed Brandon and Sierra's initials on a design board. The wall alone was listed in a package starting at $9,500. I did not confront my mother that day. I called Grandpa Arthur's longtime attorney, Samuel Green. Mr. Green remembered the account and asked me to bring every statement I could find. When I met him, he pulled a copy of the original custodial agreement from Grandpa's estate file. The assets were irrevocably gifted to me. My mother could spend them only for my benefit while I was a minor, and state law required transfer of control at 18. She could not use the money for Brandon, a wedding, or herself. Mr. Green said, "If your signature was forged, this is not a family disagreement. It is a financial crime and a breach of custodial duty." I wanted him to be wrong. I wanted an explanation involving a temporary loan that would be repaid before classes. Then I remembered the failed tuition transfer. My mother had allowed me to discover the empty account through public embarrassment rather than tell me herself. Mr. Green sent preservation notices to the bank and wedding planner. He also told me to secure my credit, change passwords, and move my personal documents out of my mother's house. I stayed with my friend Elena and her parents. That evening, I asked my mother to meet me at a coffee shop. I brought the failed payment notice, but did not mention the forged signature. I asked, "Mom, where is my college fund?" My mother first blamed market losses. When I said I knew about the cashier's check, her face hardened. She told me Brandon's wedding deposits had come due unexpectedly, and Sierra's father had reduced his contribution. My mother said, "I borrowed it. Brandon will pay it back when his commission comes through." Brandon sold advertising for a local radio station. His best month had produced a $2,100 commission. There was no realistic path for him to repay more than $80,000. I asked whether he knew. My mother replied, "He knows I helped. He does not need to know which account. Do not poison his wedding over paperwork." I told her the money legally belonged to me. She said, You are 18. You have your whole life to earn money. Brandon is almost 30, and Sierra will leave if this wedding falls apart." That sentence removed the last possibility that she had panicked briefly. She had calculated that my future was easier to sacrifice. I asked her to cancel every refundable wedding expense and return the money within 48 hours. My mother laughed once and said deposits were non-refundable. Then she threatened to remove me from the family health plan and stop paying my phone bill if I involved outsiders. I replied, "An attorney is already involved." My mother stood so quickly that her chair scraped the floor. She called me selfish, ungrateful, and jealous of Brandon. Customers turned toward us. I stayed seated and asked her to communicate through Mr. Green. She did not respect that request. That night, she disabled my phone because the account was in her name. She also removed me from the family auto policy without warning, although my premium was paid through the end of the month. I learned about it from an automated insurer email before driving the next morning. I purchased my own policy from Elena's kitchen table. The cost was painful, but it prevented my mother from creating an accident and blaming me for it. I also ordered a replacement birth certificate, changed the address on my bank account, and placed a fraud alert with the credit bureaus. The credit report showed a department store card opened 4 months earlier with a $730 balance. My mother had added herself as an authorized user and used the card for clothing. She said she had opened it to build my credit. I disputed the account because I had never applied for it. The retailer closed it and removed the balance after reviewing the online application data. That discovery widened the case. What I had first considered one desperate theft was part of a pattern in which my mother treated my identity as a household resource. Mr. Green instructed her to preserve every device and account related to applications made in my name. My mother responded by changing the locks on her house and placing my remaining possessions in plastic bags on the porch. It rained before Elena's father and I could collect them. Most items were replaceable, but several photographs of Grandpa were water damaged. Elena's father spread the photographs across his garage workbench and dried them with fans. He never insulted my mother. He simply said, "You are safe here while you get organized." That quiet sentence affected me more than any dramatic promise. It showed me help could exist without a future invoice. My mother later sent a message saying I could come home if I dismissed the attorney and apologized to Brandon. I saved the message for the case. I did not return. The next morning, Brandon called. He said, "Mom told me you are trying to destroy the wedding because your scholarship was smaller than expected." I told him the exact amount withdrawn and named the payee. Brandon went quiet. Then he said our mother had promised to cover the planner's $45,000 final package and several vendor balances. He claimed he did not know the source. I asked if he would cancel the unpaid portions and help recover the deposits. Brandon said, "Sierra's family has already invited 200 people. You cannot expect us to humiliate ourselves." I answered, "You are asking me to finance your reputation with 4 years of my education." Brandon told me to take loans because everyone did. He promised he would repay me eventually, but refused to sign a repayment agreement Mr. Green drafted. That refusal told me he knew a promise without dates or collateral would keep me quiet without costing him anything. The bank produced the withdrawal packet 4 days later. The acknowledgement contained a digital signature created from a scanned image of my handwriting. The image came from a scholarship form I had signed at home. The packet included a copy of my driver's license, which my mother had kept to add me to the car insurance. The contact email on the request was not mine. It was a new address made from my first and middle names. Recovery information pointed to my mother's phone. Ever After Events provided its records after receiving the preservation letter. My mother had paid $68,000 by cashier's check. The remaining $14,183 went through transfers to a bridal boutique, jeweler, and luxury rental company. A planner's email thanked my mother for rescuing the dream after Brandon's card was declined. The records also revealed that $23,000 of the spending was still refundable if the couple reduced the guest count and canceled premium upgrades before a deadline 9 days away. My mother had lied when she said nothing could be recovered. Mr. Green sent a formal demand to my mother, Brandon, Sierra, and the planner. He requested immediate cancellation of refundable items and warned that anyone who knowingly retained disputed funds after notice could be added to the civil claim. Sierra called me for the first time. She sounded furious and frightened. She said, "Your mother told us the money came from selling your grandfather's old investments after all inheritances were settled." I asked whether she would authorize refunds. Sierra said she needed time because her parents would be devastated. I told her the deadline. Then I emailed her the bank confirmation and account agreement. I did not call her names or threaten to expose her. I wanted a documented choice. Sierra forwarded my email to Brandon. Brandon forwarded it to my mother with a message asking whether I could actually recover the money. My mother replied that I was a child and would back down once the family stopped speaking to me. Brandon accidentally included me when he forwarded the chain to his best man. That email became the point when his claim of ignorance ended. Instead of authorizing refunds, Brandon and Sierra moved the wedding forward by 6 weeks, hoping the event would happen before the dispute reached court. They sent guests an update describing an exciting venue opportunity. My mother told relatives I had experienced a mental health crisis and was making false accusations. I did not post private bank documents online. I gave a single written statement to close family members who contacted me. It said my education account had been emptied without my consent, that the bank was reviewing a disputed signature, and that counsel had requested preservation of funds. I attached the bank's case number with personal digits removed. My Aunt Renee called and admitted my mother had asked her to tell me Grandpa always intended the money for both children. Renee refused because Grandpa had discussed the account with her repeatedly. She agreed to provide a declaration. Northlake granted me an emergency extension after Mr. Green documented the dispute. My scholarship remained active, but I needed $6,200 for the first semester after federal aid. Elena's parents offered a loan. I accepted only after signing a repayment schedule because I was finished with family promises that depended on memory. The bank's fraud department concluded the signature had not been authenticated correctly and that its employee had bypassed an age transfer alert. The bank provisionally restored $58,000. The portion it determined remained within its loss process, while pursuing recovery from the cashier's check recipient. The rest depended on returned vendor funds and claims against my mother. Before issuing that decision, the investigator interviewed me twice. During the second interview, she showed me the timestamp sequence. My mother had created the fake email address at 8:14 a.m., reset the account delivery preferences at 8:31, and uploaded my scanned signature at 8:46. At 9:02, she called the bank pretending I was beside her but unavailable because I was taking an exam. I had actually been shelving children's books at work. My time card and the library's security log placed me 12 miles away. The bank recording captured an employee asking to speak with me. In the background, my mother said a muffled sentence in a higher voice. The employee then accepted my mother's explanation that I was embarrassed to discuss a large withdrawal. Hearing the clip made my hands shake. She had not merely checked the wrong box, she had performed me. Mr. Green used the timeline in a request for a temporary restraining order, preventing further transfers or destruction of records. At the hearing, my mother's attorney argued that the withdrawal was an informal family loan and that criminal language was unnecessary. The judge asked where the loan agreement was. There was none. The judge then asked why a willing lender would need a fake email account and a copied signature. My mother's attorney requested time to consult with his client. The court froze a portion of my mother's savings and prohibited her from contacting the bank as my representative. It also ordered her to produce communications with Brandon about the source of the wedding money. Those messages ended Brandon's claim that he knew nothing. 2 weeks before the withdrawal, he had texted my mother that stealing from my school account would make me hate them. My mother replied that I would receive scholarships and get over it. Brandon answered that he did not want details as long as the venue was paid by Friday. When confronted with that exchange, Brandon insisted he had been joking. His following message included the exact venue balance and a champagne emoji. The major betrayal was no longer only what my mother had done. My brother had recognized it was theft, chosen not to ask questions, and later told me to borrow money so the evidence could remain hidden behind wedding photographs. When the planner's insurer became involved, Ever After Events froze services. The venue canceled the accelerated date because it had not received final payment. Guests learned the wedding was postponed through a generic email, not through me. Sierra's parents demanded records. Once they saw the source of the money and Brandon's refusal to refund available amounts, they withdrew from the event. Sierra ended the engagement 2 weeks later. She returned the designer dress and authorized refunds totaling $17,600. She kept no disputed money and was not named in my civil case. Brandon blamed me for losing his relationship. He left a voicemail saying, "I hope your degree keeps you warm when you have no family." I saved it and did not respond. My mother was interviewed by investigators after the bank referred the forged documents. She initially claimed I had verbally approved the withdrawal. The fake email account and copied signature made that explanation difficult. She later entered a diversion agreement that required restitution, financial counseling, community service, and no access to accounts belonging to anyone else. If she failed, the criminal charge could be reinstated. The civil settlement took 11 months. Between the bank restoration, vendor refunds, my mother's retirement withdrawal, and a repayment judgment against Brandon for benefits he knowingly retained, the account recovered $79,200. Legal costs and market changes meant it did not return to the exact prior balance, but it was enough to preserve my education. The court also ordered the account transferred fully into my control. Mr. Green helped me place the money in a new account at a different institution and set a semester budget. I repaid Elena's parents before my second year. My mother sold her newer car and downsized from a 3-bedroom rental to a 1-bedroom apartment. She tells relatives I chose money over family. Brandon moved to another state and still sends occasional emails promising to repay me if I help remove the judgment from his credit. I forward them to counsel. Some relatives stopped speaking to me. Others apologized privately, but asked me not to mention their support because they did not want conflict with my mother. I learned that neutrality often means privately agreeing with the injured person while publicly protecting the person who creates the most discomfort. A year after the settlement, my mother requested mediation for family reconciliation. I agreed to one session with clear conditions. She needed to acknowledge the forged signature, the false email, and the department store card without blaming financial stress or Brandon. During the session, my mother said, "I admit I made choices, but a mother should not lose her daughter over one bad season." The mediator asked her to name the choice. My mother said she had redistributed family resources. I ended the session. I was not demanding that she use the word monster. I was asking her to use the word mine. I completed my degree in accounting in 4 years. At graduation, I carried Grandpa Arthur's old fountain pen inside my gown. Aunt Renee and Elena's family sat in the front row. My mother mailed a card saying she hoped I was satisfied with what my victory had cost everyone. I did not answer. The cost had not been created when I asked for my money back. It had been created when she decided Brandon's wedding photographs mattered more than my consent. I now volunteer twice a month with a nonprofit that teaches teenagers basic banking and credit safety. I tell them to read statements, protect identification documents, and learn who legally owns any account bearing their name. I do not tell my entire story unless they ask. Most of them already understand that love and financial control can exist in the same house. For years, I worried that protecting the account made me cruel because the wedding collapsed afterward. Therapy helped me separate sequence from responsibility. My demand did not forge a signature. My bank call did not spend $82,000. The truth did not break an honest engagement. It revealed how many people expected silence to keep the celebration intact. Grandpa called the fund a bridge. My mother tried to dismantle it and use the pieces as wedding decorations. I rebuilt enough to cross, and I will never again hand someone control of my future just because they use the word family. If your mother emptied a college account that legally belonged to you, forged your approval, and used the money for your brother's wedding, would you have pursued the bank case and legal action, even if the wedding and family relationships fell apart? Or would you have accepted the loss to avoid the fallout?